Oh, perfect. Yeah, we're talking today about fusion. So if anyone has anything, I know it's just you, Greg, right now, but I know you say you have no questions, so we figured we just kind of go over. I'm just gonna, for the sake of the recording, just kind of cover what a fusion is in general. So that way people know, and then if they join and they have questions, and they can ask, or if they find us online on like LinkedIn or use our Gmail, of course, then people can always ask questions as well. Since we have another attendee here, we have here, let me go in the Q&A. Cool. So we are going to just say kind of like the beginning piece of the fusion. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask on the Q&A portion. So fusions are whenever we combine multiple template like reports into one template. So just so you know, ways that we could use fusions would be potentially for a settlement statement. It could be for a demand letter if you're in personal injury or anything like related to demand letters. Sometimes if we do any like creative builds where we have to track things a little differently, like, maybe like someone that's deceased in a case, and then we need to like write a letter that's coded for two different main parties. Maybe we would rather we have a collection section where we have parties. So sometimes we do like court documents and things that are fusions because we want to be able to fuse together different section reports into one template. Another thing that we might utilize fusions for is for things like just really great reports, right? Like sometimes I want to pull a report, but I have 6 different case types, 6 different templates. Like I work in criminal, I work in family law, and I work in personal injury, and I have to run a report on all 6 case types. So what we might do is we might put together a fusion report that literally it's all the case templates that have all the same kind of stats and columns that we want to see visually. But then we can also pull that together to then create this like really nice single report, or maybe it is in duplicate tabs. One thing that I'll show you guys in the actual Sandbox account is we don't really have any in there for as far as like actual examples of the report, just because everything we store is fake in our Sandbox basically. But one thing that's like a fun idea that you guys could maybe like brainstorm over time is how you could use these fusion reports and put them into a report dashboard. So we have the example here where like if we wanted, we could put a fusion widget for like demand out report. So this one says all demands that are currently out and then all demands that are pending. So we've built reports where we've had demand tracking stats, but the criteria doesn't mix together. So like let's say it's, sometimes it's that we've already received a response and sometimes it's that we're just waiting on the new response, right? So we want those all in one report. So we have to create a fusion to get that. So just like random ideas like that, that you could utilize, or like, any honestly like report can be considered a fusion as well. So you don't actually, I'll take you to the advanced tools and show you the settings. So if you go to report fusion and you want to like merge something together, if you look, it gives you the option. So pretend fusion. It gives you the option to actually go in here and just pull in one report. So let's say that you don't really want to run your report from the saved report dash or the report builder, and you actually just want to utilize that type of section like I showed. You don't even have to fuse together multiple items to build those reports. So it's kind of cool. That would just be like if you want to have all of them in one spot in a more organized manner, I guess you could say. When you are building fusions, from back here, it does start from the report builder. So like the first step is to go into report builder, build out what it is that you want to see come together. And then once you build those reports, you go back to report fusion, and then you have to actually fuse them. So again, I'll do demo fusion. And then for training, and then what I can do is I can pull out random items. So maybe I want to fuse together. I'm just going to use something that's already in here. We'll do the case costs, the liens, and the medicals. I'm not sure what I'm building, guys. I'm actually just like grabbing random reports in hopes that they're gonna fuse for you. Yeah, I'm like, I think I pulled reports that don't even exist anymore. So,
You want to remember about like these fusions, or just as you saw it in that like report list, it's helpful if you name your reports fusion, if you know that you're going to be utilizing it for a fusion or something like that. So it's easy for you to be able to find and access them, because as you continue to run reports, that list gets pretty long, especially if you save all of your reports. So just a tip there, is a little bit easier for you to select um, if you name them accordingly.
yeah, we're very, very, very big on naming conventions here for Report Builder. Otherwise, it's like insane how many reports you will get stuck with. Also, the other thing that is a unique thing that I feel like no one really talks about is when you're putting in the widget for the report, you have options like, for example, if I just go into a random template and pretend like I'm going to put in a fusion here. So like in the report dashboard, I would go here and do, like a report fusion multi-template or a single one. But whenever you have the prompt, which is the name, and you go to add the temp, like whatever it is you want, you can see that within this, you have the option to limit to data in the current project or not. So like if I was building a document for for a project, like a settlement statement or demand or, whatever it is, like case summary report, then you of course want to limit the data to current projects. But also if you want it to be in that dashboard, you always need to make sure you don't select that because you don't want it to accidentally like not be able to run. Otherwise it's only going to pull from that admin section. And then the part that I feel like people forget about or don't really talk about is you can actually build the reports from different templates and pull them into a whole different template. So the admin template that we provide typically when you work with us is a whole different template. And so we take our PI cases and our criminal cases or whatever it is that we're merging together in these different reports, pulling from different templates, and we generate it from an admin template. So it's kind of nice because it does kind of bring it together where they can coexist in a simple variation of kind of like a dashboard, if you kind of want to call it that. I know I've been like rambling just random facts. I see someone else joined. Any questions as far as like your interest in fusions go or anything specific on fusions that you were wondering? Anything, Greg, that came up on your mind, or the other person who joined, Nicola? Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Nicola, maybe. Feel free to chat in. Okay. So whenever I am fusing together some templates, I'm just going to build something really random. So I'm building specifically for project type, PI, just because that's the one we have the most stuff in for examples. So I'm just going to do the name, the phase, the first primary, the project type. I'm just going to do like a project list. Like I just want to see a list of things within this case, let's say, but from different sections. So I'm going to go into that case and just pull some key data. So I'm just building these reports out. Forgot to toggle that on. Building reports is bad. Is your truth behind building reports like the hated version? Is it because it's slower, or is it just because like it's a lot of options and it's like overwhelming? Both, yeah. Report builder can be slow. You know what's funny? I actually gave this like weird, I don't even know if this is like helpful advice because it almost leads to like just having to figure it out still on your own. But one of the things that I like did for like just talking about report builder in general is like you literally have to take like a day where you're not supposed to be working, maybe like a random weekend, and like go through what options exist and choose criteria. Right? Because I feel like the part for me that gets to my mind, and this is why we end up fusing so many things, is because criteria doesn't like co-mix. Like it can't exist. So like for example, let's say I wanted to run a report where I'm like, I want to see every time I send out a medical record. So my medical record request date is not blank, but then I also want to see whenever my medical request date is full. So it's like it's confusing. That's conflicting data. so you have to build that into two separate reports because you want to see it all at once. Like I want to see every single request that I've done, but I want to see the ones that are completed and incomplete all at once. So what we end up having to do is run two separate reports because that criteria doesn't always align. Like if you say where the receive date is obviously has something in it, like a value, then it's not going to show you the ones that have no value, of course, for that you've just sent the request out but haven't received a response. So you end up having to like fuse things like that even together because that's like how you would get, you know, a more proper request sent out like report or something. So it's interesting, like I guess you could call them workarounds that we've came up with, but it's all leaned towards report builder. But I feel like that's the kind of criteria that you have to like play around with almost to like fully understand what it is that you need.
And the next thing about a report like that is you already created it once, so you can just rerun it and change the criteria instead of having to go back and rebuild the entire report. So like as you start building out these reports, use them as a base to create additional reports again, so you're not having to start from scratch and repick all of the columns and things like that.
Yeah. In my crunchy terms, I call myself like a crunchy mom in my real life. So I always say I recycle reports because that's like the way I see it is I'm like literally recycling them. I'm just constantly reusing them. So I always say like maybe it doesn't need to be you, Greg. Maybe one person at your firm needs to be the expert. And then you just take that one report and you reuse it over and over again, but just change things because you can't override someone else's report ever. So first thing is no one can even see that report if you don't share it with them. And then second, you can't override it unless you literally like are logged in as them and you're saving over the one that they built. So you could have like us at Vine Skills build out all of your standard reports in the very beginning, you know, if you're working with us or whatever, and then you guys could go in and you could actually go in and reuse without actually becoming an expert at reporting because it's like a little easier to get that template. Let me go to open. We share a lot. Yeah, that's smart. I definitely think that like sharing reports is like the way to go, right? Like it's otherwise it's, I have a lot of firms that I work with that don't know that you have to share the report also. So that's why I always point that out. I have another thing that reminded me of in fusions that are errors that you might receive. So a lot of times I have clients that I specifically work with or we work with at Find Skills that we build a fusion for, and then maybe they like pause services with us, or we built it during launch and we didn't like continue for a little bit, like post-launch, right? So they say like they need to fix the report or they need to change it. They like maybe got a new field added or something they need to incorporate it into the build. That fusion report is pulling from the main report that you've already created. So it's like my report, I own it. So what you would have to do to change that report is you'd actually have to take the report most likely was shared with you, save as, and then remove it from the fusion on the back end. So in that section where we were like clicking around here, you would actually like, we'll pretend like we're doing this demand tracking one. So like, let's pretend like I rebuilt this demand report. I would have to like remove it by double clicking and then type in the new version and add it back in. That one that I created, and then it's gonna populate a new report ID. So you're gonna have to recode the report ID. And if you don't know what I mean by the report ID, it's in here. So if I open up this demand tracking one, we'll see if it has anything in it. I'm not convinced that our demo reports have much in them. So here you can see like we have this begin and repeat, and then we have these like end repeat codes. So it's like telling the system, I want to repeat this data however many times it exists, right? I want like an unlimited amount of data. So you have to go in, you have to right click, edit note, and you would have to replace this report ID and maybe even like the whole thing. So I usually just cut and paste it from the template. So like what I would have to do is regenerate a template as well. So you'd open up this, regenerate that template, which this one's gonna have an error. I'm pretty sure these are old reports in these like examples, so they just don't exist. They're like archived and stuff. But it's interesting. That's like a hurdle, I think, for some firms is like understanding that because a lot of times you want to go in and change it. but you like don't own the report. So you need to make sure if you have anybody building fusions for you that you like ask for access to the main one, so you can always rebuild them unless you plan to like have that person be your go-to person to edit them. That way you can easily just like reuse it and not rebuild it all from scratch. And then also another thing just on that topic is you can technically just go into the template. So let's say that all your only issue was that you don't like the way that it looks. You could just go in here and make like a whole different report like style. So you could be like, I really like the color pink and I want a pink report for some reason instead, or something like it's Valentine's Day and I'm feeling like I need a different vibe or switch up. You can always go in and make those edits to like make it look aesthetically like the way you want it, but you don't have to have access to the report. You don't have to regenerate that template. That just means you have to save the template that was already created and then like re-upload it into this replace template number 3. Um, I know I'm like rambling on random topics of fusions, but another thing I thought of that I feel like is important to point out, if you're ever building a report fusion, step 1 is downloading like a template, but step 2 is actually instructions. So I don't know why it comes after step 1, but if you actually open these up, it will tell you like how to do it. So like it'll explain like the report ID rules and stuff like that. So if you're ever like super lost in the sauce trying to build these out, just like download these instructions and kind of skim through them, the best that you can to understand like the concept of them and like codes that you can utilize for different formatting inside Word, things like that. So,
And a lot of times you'll see we use Excel. That's just because we like being able to utilize the additional formulas that Excel offers, or like the different formatting options. You can totally use either. They both work the same in essence, but again, with Excel, you're able to utilize Excel formulas and things like that in your actual document.
yeah, that's a really important thing to like consider, because whenever so it's not like just the formulas, like you can use Word formulas, but with Word formulas you have to actually like refresh the page to make it actually usually show. And sometimes you have to do that on, like, you have to toggle them basically on. And some people's words might automatically have that set up. Maybe it's just us because we're jumping from org to org to org. But that I feel like there's also such a limitation. So like if I'm using Word, it's because I'm actually creating a general document. But if I'm using Excel, it's probably because there's going to be a need for formulas. I'm going to be counting something, tracking dates, things like that. Because we want time on desk reports or things like that. And we want to be able to give you guys that in a template. So we want to make sure that we can like actually calculate the formula of, from create a date till today, right? So, any specific questions in the Q&A section? I know we have another person that joined, Paula, it looks like. Do you guys have any random questions? Even if it's not specifically on fusions, anything reporting related, I can help answer. And Jasmine.
One way to kind of speed up those reports sometimes is, as you saw, Jen opened up a project on the front end for where she was going to be pulling the data from, and she just copied and pasted the title. That usually helps the system run a little bit faster. And it also makes sure that you're typing in accurately what the field actually is, because any variation between what's in the field name and what you're typing in here will cause it to not show up. So if you did statute of limitations and you typed in SOL because that's how you all shorten it, but really it's typed out statute of limitations, or our statute of limitations, I think, has a colon on it. So just like little things like that, again, super helpful to just copy and paste in there. So you're getting the exact field that you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge lifesaver for me. Building reports for years in Filevine. I am like the SOL one was like a prime example. I do that all the time because we all say that word, like that phrase or whatever. We're always like SOL, SOL. So I like to be able to come in here and like do like name, phase, date of intake, statute of limitations done or due and not done, right? But I like forget because sometimes we say like SOL here, but then we say statute here. and you might accidentally pull in the second one, like, you know, or just in general, like look at if I type in the word statute and I look, I can see that I have a bajillion options, and then I have statute of limitations, but I have second statute of limitations here, and I sometimes I accidentally grab that one, but then like nothing pulls up because that's not the one we want to report off of, because that's not like the main one that we're like judging our like report off of. So I think that that's like a very important thing to consider. So like if I wanted to do let's do past due or due, we'll say within 180 days, we'll just like fuse together a report just tracking multiple statutes of limitations. Because I have that request a lot too. People want to see on one report, they want to see one that's 180 days out, then they want to see one that's 30 days, then they want to see one that's 60 days out, but they want to just see it all at once. They don't really want to like run multiple reports. So that would be an example of one we could put inside this admin template. If
And
it runs.
oh, sorry. I was just going to say for any of you that are interested in, you know, having some of those advanced reports run for you, but you're like, I loathe reporting, or I just don't understand it, or I don't know the reports to run to get me the data that I need. We do offer hourly support services as well as like full blocks of service where we can run these reports for you. We can also create fusions for you or other documents. So for instance, like if you did want a statute of limitations with 180 days, 90 days, 60 days, whatever it is, we're able to create a, you know, Excel typically fusion for you that pulls out those dates, either having them in different tabs, or I know Derek has done some really cool stuff with being able to use a drop-down list and having the data pull up based off of a drop-down list within your Excel. Again, not having to constantly run those reports for you, but just having it in one document.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some like really cool things that you can do with, like, once you master building the reports and building the templates and the fusions, then you can start playing around with Excel formulas and just making like really fun opportunities where you can like really make a snazzy report. And you see how I'm just like going back and forth, like I'm literally choosing criteria and then I'm like saving as the date that I'm like picking, just to show you how it's like super easy. As Jasmine's literally talking, I'm making these adjustments to the same report over and over, not changing anything else, not doing anything weird, you know. Then I'm just gonna go to advanced, go to report fusion, then fusion, SOL report, and then I'm gonna pick a fusion. And you can see, Jasmine said this in the beginning, if you use keywords like fusion, it makes it way easier to find what you're looking for. Of course, you're not always gonna like put, like sometimes you could just search for the title if you know exactly, but I imagine your report builder looks a lot like ours does, where it's full of a ton of reports. So, and over time in Filevine, it most likely will if it's not already. So I've just grabbed those reports. I'm gonna click on Excel.
And
Big
so
Excel.
just one tip, if you're bringing in static data, you typically want to bring that in via a static report and not a collection report. If you don't have data in the collection section, it won't even pull in like your client's name. So if you, for instance, have like insurance and you don't have any insurance items in there, but you've run a report and included client name on there, and that's the code you're choosing to pull, it won't pull in your client's name, even though it's in the system, because there's nothing in that section. So just keep that in mind. And then when you go to add the reports in, you typically want to add in your what is static section report, sorry, before your collection section reports in that list.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm just like cutting and pasting this stuff to be on like the same page. So, and I'm just like, not that I would necessarily want this one to be, but I'm just putting like little headers so that way I can kind of, just to show you guys like how I can kind of merge them onto one. This one's a very simple one for the sake of time and an example, of course, but you know, make it orange and weird. I like to make weird color reports for some reason. And then we'll do white. So like from here, I'm gonna actually remove these columns because they're the same, like on the top anyway, so it doesn't really matter, right? Like it's all gonna be name, phase, date of intake, SOL due date. And then like right here is like kind of my spacing to be like, okay, this is the title, you know, if that makes sense. And then I'm just gonna take them and put it in a, maybe I'll put it in a bordered, you know, wall just for the sake of the recording. I'll say SOL do, because I want to change the phrase that it says. Like you don't have to keep things, you know, the way that it's formatted. You can change it completely if you want. I can make the whole thing a different font. I always struggle on picking fonts. I want to make something different just for the sake of fun, because I don't have to use this for anything. Just for this video. And then, you know, we do the same thing 24/7, so it's nice to mix it up every once in a while. And then, so you can see like here, I'm probably gonna remove the border and actually make this bold, just to make it like a header. But it's kind of weird looking, but it's like for the sake of just the recording and like doing this, I want to do insert, and I'm gonna do, actually I'm gonna do data and then do filters because I want to have filters here. So you can see like I have the 180-day report here, the 90 and the 30. I'm deleting those columns because I don't want them. You could technically use all this for data columns, and then you could do formulas on the front page too, which is like a lot with you would experience with our advanced reporting team, where they will actually like go in and like basically take all the data and then put it into like more fancier tables and you know, the drop downs that like Jasmine was talking about, things like that. So another thing I like to do is I like to actually save as and remove the word template. I don't like having the word template there. Technically, you could keep it if you want. And then I just save it somewhere really obvious. I always save it somewhere obvious, like my desktop. And then I'm gonna rename this SOL report because I don't like having the SOLs, like I can't stand having SOL reports or like not having the name down there, you know, because I want it to be like very, very, very uh obvious. Again, I'm a big renaming person, so I just exit out of that template, upload in step number 3 from desktop, where I found it easily because I put it somewhere instead of just saving it and not knowing where I put it. And then it's there, but now I can't do anything with it because it doesn't have, you know, like I can't, what am I gonna do with it? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna actually go to customs editor, go to that admin project, report dashboard. Then I'm going to do a instruction text is what I like to do. So SOL reports. And then I'm gonna add that. This is kind of like bonus information that we like to do to organize these. I usually will literally add something like, you know, I like to add things to make it a little more fun. And then in row
The
6.
formatting pieces you just saw Jen do with the equal signs and everything, that can be found on the support website. I'll include the link in the chat. You can utilize that formatting in your activity feed, in these documents, or in these widgets and fields and other places as well.
Yep. Perfect. So I always choose report fusion multi-template because I have like builder regret all the time if I do a single template. I'm sure some of you have been in those shoes. So like it's really hard to delete something once you've used it in Filevine, as I'm sure you guys know. So I like to choose multi-template because it gives me a safety net that if I decide to change this from SOL reports to SOL reports, I can. So just a safety net. For this, because it's just going, I don't have to route it to anything specific because it's just going into it's just my general report dashboard. Of course, you could have that routed into specific folders if you need to. And then I removed a limit data to current project because this is going into an admin template. You can make it a PDF or editable. It's up to you how you want to see it. Oh, sorry, give me 1 second. I meant to click the chat. MacBook problems. So then here, you can hit create. And then I can go back to the admin. And then go to report dashboard. And then you can see like I like having it kind of laid out like this. Then I can just select the report that I built and then generate it. And then if it worked, then it'll be, you know, there'll be some data in it. Sometimes you'll also find that it doesn't run, and it's because your project is archived. How many of us have archived demo test projects? That's common. We run things all the time in demo, in like demo cases, but we archive them. So sometimes we like to run them. So either you have to include archived into your report criteria, which you most likely don't want to do, or you have to make sure you do these in non-archived cases. So like change the face to something. So now if we look here, we should just see a general template where it's just showing like this data. I put it in a PDF, which is really random, and I most likely wouldn't have done. I probably would have just left this in Excel, but just to show you what different views look like. I didn't format it for PDF, so that's why some of it's down here. But all I'm showing is essentially how report builder can be, or how Fusion reports can be sometimes super simple for these like dashboard ideas rather than like making it super in depth, things like that. Not everything has to be complicated, right? Okay. Does anyone have any random questions on report builder or fusions?
Fusions can be a little bit more complex than that sometimes. They're super great for bringing in data, but if you're trying to like bring in fields, those codes that Jen talked about that come into the report, you would need to utilize those. So Jen, I'm not sure if you can pull up any of those. I can also try to pull up.
Yeah, which fields did you just say, or which codes?
Like when you're doing a report fusion, if you need to like, for instance, you're taking items from a collection section, that setup for the template is going to look a little bit different than just like cutting and pasting.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that you would utilize that in report fusion. So I'm trying to think of the best way to just show it without completely building. I guess I'll just build one. I don't trust any of our reports anymore because every time I fold one, they're not, they have nothing in it. So if I build a just like a really quick one in like a, where the heck? Guys, we have a lot of stuff in here, so. All right, so like let me just do a list of medicals because that's like an easy one to grab. So let's say that I want to do, I'll say I want to do like a project specific one. So I want this to actually generate inside a case. So what I want to do is like final balance, that's fine. Provider first name, I'm going to remove, and project name. I'm going to actually pull in provider full name because I can't confirm that the first name will have what I want in it. And then I want that to repeat, and maybe I want like treatment date to repeat, things like that. Treatment date started, treatment completed, and then I'm just gonna run this report.
Think about it.
Try to be patient. Report builder is like I say this every time, it's the most awkward thing to train on because you just get to like sit here and watch people stare at a spinning wheel. So
Sometimes it's so fast though. It's like you never know what you're going to get when you're in there. It's like some days you can't even finish your sentence and it's done running.
yes, my thought is most of the time when I'm in other people's orgs, it's fast. When I'm in our org, it's slow because we have thousands of templates, it seems. So it's a little crazy. So I'm going to save this report as just fusion dash medical example. So I'm saving this. I'm not sharing it with anyone since it's an internal team, but at this point I would probably share it with a group of people, you know, to make sure they have it. Like anyone that I would assume would need to edit the template ever in their future. And then I'm going to go here and build just a really quick static report, even though technically, actually, I'll just use my one of my SOL ones. So I'm going to go to advanced again, go to report fusion, and we're going to just create a random document. So we're going to say fusion example Word document, repeating collections. So I'm going to pull in the report and then I'm going to do the 180-day fusion testing. I accidentally did it backwards. I always like, Jasmine, I think you might have said this. I try to pull the static one first because if I want to repeat the data throughout the document, it just works better. And then I'm going to hit save so it creates it. So I'm going to actually generate a Word document. I'm going to switch it up for you guys. Open it up. So I'm opening up that template of codes. So this is sometimes where I need to decide, am I like taking these two reports and am I like plucking the information out of it and putting it into a template that I've already created, like a Word document that I've already been using, or am I gonna like start from scratch? Well, obviously for sake of this video, I'm going to be starting from complete scratch. So I'm gonna pretend like I'm writing a letter that says, or like I'm just generating a form where we like send out a literal general information to a provider or something, or it's just like almost like a Medicron, I guess you could say, but not itemized out dates. So one of the things like you wouldn't do, because I don't need to repeat name, I don't even need phase in it. I'm gonna use intake date. So I don't need to repeat these two dates or these 2 points of data. So the first thing I need to do is I need to acknowledge this report ID. And this is where the coding can get a little more complex. And I need to post that here because I need to have the system still acknowledge it. So it's bracket, bracket, report ID, colon, colon. And then I'm going to just take the code name, which I guess I could just type. I don't need to copy and paste that. And then I'm just going to post it here after these 2 colons. And I'm going to close the bracket. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing for date of incident. So I'm going to take this code and this colon in front of it, or I mean these brackets, and then I'm going to take the incident date. Now, one thing you're going to notice is I'm actually grabbing it like this, but I'm not going to actually like take the formatting with it because of the fact that I'm not repeating it, it'll reject the code. So what I usually do is I just delete things once I use it if I know I don't have to reuse it. Some things to keep in mind if I'm using this for like a demand template or a letter that's going out, a court document, you can reuse these codes as many times as you need throughout like the document. So don't worry about like overusing something. You can repeat the code. You don't have to rebuild it into like 14 different static reports. I think I did that a long time ago and like learned, oh, I can actually just reuse the same report 12 times if I needed to. So for this one, I'm done with this information. So I don't need it to repeat, and I'm not keeping these start end codes or anything. I just have the report ID. So now I'm going to build a table with 1, 2, 3 columns in it, right? So I'm going to insert a table. I'm going to do provider. I'm going to do range of treatment. And then I'm going to do the balance due. So now to get this to repeat, so this one is set to not repeat, this one needs to repeat. I'm gonna grab this start field and I'm gonna post it in here. I'm gonna grab the code for provider full name, post it in here. You see how they're like right up against each other. I copied it exactly as is. This is a merge field code and that's exactly what I need. I'm gonna grab the start treatment date, put a dash, grab the completed date, put a dash, or put it there, paste it. Then I'm going to grab so the reverse of this order, I'm going to grab the code and then grab the end code. So what I'm doing is I'm saying to this document or to the system, to Filevine, I'm saying I want this to repeat, but I don't need anything else to repeat, like going right, like I don't need the name to repeat. So I'm just going to highlight all of the document and change the font to be something a little bit different because for some reason for you guys, I'm just refusing to keep it standard. I don't know what's wrong with me today with that. And then of course you can do whatever you need. Like you can edit your table. Like if you want to make a better looking table than the one like that generally exists or whatever, you can do whatever you want here. But what I'm doing is I'm just going to go here and I'm going to like identify this information. And then I'm going to save as again. I'm going to save it as Fusion example, dashboard document, save it on my desktop. I'm literally never leaving things in my download. How many times do you guys download things a day from Filevine, from your email, from wherever, and it's like hard to find things? That's like not the goal here for anyone. So I always point that out. If you do want to add a second column here below, technically to do math, you could. So like if you wanted to do like total, This is where we were saying how like formulas can be possible, but they're not like oops, they're not the best inside word, but that's like a word problem more than anything, I feel like. So you can do some formulas. Equal. I'm gonna do the format. I'm gonna do sum above and hit that. So I'm going to then hit save, and then I'm going to just upload this in. So I'm on my desktop already and I'm just adding it in.
Now this process, once you upload it, it will kick back and let you know, hey, it's good to go with the green. If not, it's typically that maybe a code is incorrect. Maybe you copied a number incorrectly. Or if you're utilizing this same template and you're like, okay, I just generated a new report, but I am just going to change a few codes in here because I want everything else to look the same. You may have forgotten to change a certain number and that report isn't in the current Fusion that you're trying to run. Or so it usually tells you, hey,
Yeah.
this isn't found in the reports that you ran. Try again. Or you may have forgotten like one of the brackets on one of the sides. So just make sure as you're copying and pasting, your copying and pasting is accurate, or that if you're again utilizing from a template that you're making sure you change all of the pieces that need to be changed.
Yeah, definitely. That's a definitely good insight there because it's nice to know that you can get usually help on that error code, what's broken, but it's also sometimes a little bit of trial and error. So same thing here. I'm going to call this a medical summary. I don't know what to call it, but I'm just going to call it something random. I'm going to select for this to automatically download into my medicals. I'm going to add that report fusion in. So this one, and then I'm going to limit this to just the project because this is specific to a project, and then hit for training. Just an internal note to ourselves to delete it later. I'm gonna go into Moneypenny. Hopefully she has some stuff in her medicals. Something to point out too, the reason why I didn't put this report in the medicals is because it would only pull the one that I'm pulling it in. So I put it in a static section, even though it wouldn't make sense to have it in this particular section. Literally, it just doesn't make sense. So you would have to just think creatively, like where would it belong? Where would you feel comfortable running something like this? And this report would be pretty bland and ugly because there was very limited data in there too. I think some of them didn't even have provider names. But just as like an example of like how, just in theory, even if this report doesn't matter to us today, just showing how there's very complicated rules, like weird rules sometimes, right? Like we need to make sure that we are to repeat that. So you see like this pulled in with no problem, not repeating. The balance due pulled in, the provider pulled in where it could, the mathed for us, so yay there. But the data range just didn't pull in because it didn't exist. But you see this repeated where it needed to, and this chose not to repeat just like we wanted. So based on that information, you're able to see us like pull together a document that, is formatted on a Word nicely that, um, pulls from repeating and also static. Now I gotta go into the medicals or to the docs, delete it so I can delete the widget. That's why we always suggest doing the multi-template, because in theory, it's like harder to track down. Like if you are actively using it, it'd be hard to track down where you've used this template before. And then you might not be able to delete it. No, this one's already doesn't want me to delete it. Try one more time. If not, I'm gonna mark it out slowly. Guess we can always use that in our back pocket for future us. Any questions from anything that we just showed there? Or just in general? Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jen, for all of your knowledge and help today on free help. If you all ever want to engage in any of Vine Skills services, feel free to reach out. I put both Jen and my email in the chat. We offer a wide range of Vine or of Filevine kind of services. We run the gamut on all things Filevine, whether that's actually Filevine, report building, Domo, Periscope, automations, FVDA, lead docket. We kind of do it all. So feel free to poke around our website, see if anything interests you. Hopefully you join us for another free help. We do these every Wednesday, same time. The topics vary, so feel free to look at our website for the next upcoming topic. And hopefully you all have a great day and we see you again. Thanks again, Jen.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.